everyone, Tom with Paleblue. I'm the founder and CEO of this wonderful team. And we are, on this Earth Day, wanted to share a little bit more information, have a conversation around, what we're building and why we do it. And, we got Dave here. I'll let Dave introduce himself, but Dave is an integral part of our team and kind of makes it all happen. So Dave, why don't you jump in?
Hey everyone, my name is Dave. I am the product director here at Paleblue. Within the brand, I focus on design, engineering, manufacturing of our products and getting things out into the hands of the consumers.
So I wanted to actually share a story, Dave, just to kind of kick things off that you may or may not have heard me tell. I tell it to the occasional person. At my prior job, there was a woman that I worked with who was in charge of sustainability. And about the same time, the ocean cleanup system was launched. A guy named Boy Onslaught, I think out of the Netherlands, this system for cleaning up trash in the Pacific Ocean. And we were watching that launch video and them talking about it. And I just made this comment of like, one of these days, Jesse, we're gonna have a company that we create and we'll buy one of those things. We'll have our names on this system out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and this gyre collecting plastic and trying to make the world better. And just kind of that thought, that spark for me where I think I was open to the idea of like actually starting something and doing something at this later stage of my career to like have a meaningful impact. And so I kind of earmarked that in my personal journey of what we're doing as like a time when where I was open to the idea of let's do something big and globally meaningful. And so I don't tell that story often because I think the genesis story of the company is really truly around product innovation. But I think I'd start there and then kick it over to you to kind of talk about how you think about what we're out to do with Paleblue.
There's a lot of single-use waste out there in the world. A lot of people are familiar with stuff that is more mainstream, like single-use water bottles and the kind of transition to hydro flasks and everything that we've seen over recent years. But, kind of bringing that more mainstream with batteries is still a very convenience-related thing for most people. So the ability to just grab a single-use and throw it in because it's what you have in your drawer, or it's what you can run to the store and grab. It's kind of an area that nobody's really tried to bring much attention to, but it's a serious issue, that has a lot of byproduct waste that gets thrown in landfills every day. A lot of toxic chemicals that break down and leach into our ecosystem.
Yeah, well, it seems bananas at this day and age with all the technology that we have that we're stuck with single-use batteries. And there's really very few ways to eliminate battery need in your life. But it seems sort of unusual that we've just stuck by single-use for so long. I think the genesis story that we like to tell is, hey, everyone would use a rechargeable battery if there was a great one. And that's just to highlight the fact that the rechargeable batteries that people have used and tried to use have just been so lackluster that everyone's still using single-use batteries. And the other component of that calculus for us is like, how inefficient are single-use batteries from a power delivery standpoint? They're obviously inefficient from a cost standpoint. You got to keep buying them and feeding your device. So if it's a door lock or an Xbox controller, you just got to keep feeding that thing. You're just buying single-use batteries at ever growing or ever rising prices. But the inefficiency in a battery as a power delivery device is one that caught me off guard. Didn't really do the math until later, and I later ran the Utah power rate cost to charge one of our AA batteries and realized, oh my God, that means a single-use AA battery only has that amount of power. And I'll pause there and let you comment before we kind of throw that number out. But it was a number that still to me is so shocking that I just look at the inefficiency built into the whole program. It's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, there was another analogy, Tom, that you used before, that outside of a dollar value, it's more of a metric, like a visual or a physical metric. If you calculated the efficiency of a AA battery as far as power consumption goes and delivery goes, it would be the equivalent of, 3 drops of water in a 20-ounce water bottle, to kind of keep the water bottle analogy going.
I think it was 12, but on the 12-ounce bottle with 3 drops in it. It came out of that math around charging a AA battery. It's like, what's it actually cost somebody? What's the cost of ownership of a rechargeable battery once you own it? And the math, boiled down to 3 drops of water in a single-use water bottle. And if you were buying a single-use water bottle on a hot day when you're thirsty and someone handed it to you and it had 3 drops of water, and you'd either become very frustrated, very angry, or just laugh at them as if it was a joke. But that's the equivalent of when you buy a battery, AA in this instance. It really has that little amount of power and value to the customer. And so here's the number. It's a 20th of a penny of power, meaning that if you buy a Paleblue battery and you want to charge our AA, it's about a 20th of a penny to get a charge at 20 times to spend a penny on the electricity. So that's maybe a highlight of how cheap electricity is, but it's a super illuminating kind of number when you look at buying a single-use battery. You're saying like I spent $1, let's say, on a really nice single-use alkaline battery, and I get a 20th of a penny of electricity out of that. It's amazing that can run your TV remote or your Xbox controller for many long hours, but it's also crazy that you're paying $1 for that and then throwing that thing in the trash every time, or hopefully going into recycling. But let's be honest, something like 5% of single-use batteries actually get recycled. So most of it's going into landfills and incinerators.
Yeah, and then along those lines as well is just the efficiency of the remaining power in most batteries that get thrown away. Typically most digital devices nowadays, kind of have a threshold where once a battery drops below, 1.2, sometimes 1.3 volts, the device is not operable anymore. So you might think the battery's dead. You pull it alkaline away and pull it out and throw it away, when really that onboard capacity is still 30, sometimes 40% of that 20th of a penny of power is still on the battery.
Well, I hadn't thought about this before, but extending the metaphor on the water bottle, that'd be like buying a single-use water bottle that's cold, and then as soon as that water warmed up enough, you just throw it away because it's like, well, can't use that anymore. And yeah, you're spot on. I think the vast majority of alkaline batteries get thrown away with a ton of power left on them because it's unusable power, because it's too low of a voltage to help the product that it's sitting in function properly. So yeah, all super crazy. And then you come up with this like, okay, what's the solution? Like, what would be a great rechargeable battery if only someone would create it?
From a design standpoint, especially with new technology, I feel like we always need to focus on minimizing the learning curve or minimizing, the adoption curve for most people to be as seamless as possible with their existing habits that they have with batteries. So, there's some things you can't change, like the size of a AA. Size of a AA there's a global standard for those batteries. They have to be set size, but within that, there's a lot of freedom of how that power is delivered, how the user interfaces with the battery, how they are able to charge, recharge, and also just, be aware of what the battery is doing, whether it is in its charging status or in its discharge status. So for us, focusing on the most meaningful way to deliver some of those experiences to the consumer from the high level with the technology. Rechargeable batteries aren't anything new. They've been around for decades. Nickel metal hydride, nickel cadmium batteries. These are probably most familiar with people that have the wall chargers. You put them in a cradle, plug them into the wall overnight, and you're lucky if they're charged when you wake up in the morning. But super basic UI, the power delivery is always subpar, well below 1.5 volts. So looking at new technology with lithium-ion, which is something everyone's already familiar with most of their portable electronic devices, maximizing that chemistry to deliver a much more meaningful experience to the users, and also pairing up that top-level technology in a new form factor with household size batteries. That's kind of the crux of what it is that we use as our baseline, and then cultivating the rest of those user experiences around the top performing technology.
Yeah, 100% with you on that one. I think that human-centric thinking around innovation is something that is not, it seems obvious to us. We've spent a lot of years working together on kind of thinking about the users of products and what are the things that would benefit them in their lives and what are those attributes, and then kind of going back down to that feature level. And in our case here, we have certain constraints, like you mentioned, the AA. For everyone's information, the battery sizes we use today mostly were standardized after World War II. There used to be a B battery, so you had A, B, C, D. Of course, we've got AA, AAA, now Quad A, and all sorts of other sizes. But within those constraints, you have this window of thinking about like what would ultimately benefit a customer more, and usability is top of the list. Not only for adoption, if you're starting a business and want to bring something to market, people need to kind of know how to use it readily, quickly, easily, avoid any kind of need for too much training. We're all too busy to read very long instruction manuals and get up to speed unless it's something super valuable, I guess. I can think of a couple examples, but basically usability is just key to that. And usability is adjacent to convenience. And my contention is that when you need a battery, you generally need it like right now or very soon. And so we got to think about not charging on a wall adapter overnight. You want to think about charging quickly anywhere, So if you intersect that convenience factor with the usability factor, you quickly come into what wasn't as obvious a few years ago, but is super obvious now. You kind of realize that USB-C is the best charging solution out there. It's universally available around the world, and it's resilient and reliable and higher speed than ever, and just very easy to find in your life, a place that you can charge. So having our batteries be USB-C is really addressing the needs of the user for convenience and usability. Let's jump back to lithium-ion as the chemistry solution. And while we are chemistry agnostic in that we would find ourselves, down the road using solid state or sodium ion or some better form of the lithium ion that we're using today. And in fact, we've made several innovations along the way just on the chemistry side of our business. But let's jump back to why lithium ion? Why, when we started things in 2019, was that the right choice, and why have we continued to use lithium ion as a chemistry?
As you mentioned, there's a lot of different options out there, and we always have our finger on the pulse of what's coming down the road with development, and always trialing new technologies and seeing what's a good fit. From Paleblue's perspective, lithium ion's a proven technology, which is part of that minimal learning curve for people that are trying out something new. They want something reliable. They want something dependable. Lithium ion delivers that in spades. Also, it's approachable from a price point. There are some newer technology and advanced battery technologies out there that are still a little more on the premium side, that are difficult to bring to market in a form factor that people are looking for, that compromise between having something that saves them money in the long term, but also, isn't a huge upfront cost, looking for a quick ROI with our batteries when they're looking to make that purchase. On top of that, a lot of the safety and security that we've seen with lithium ion advances and ways to manage that with our battery management system and all of the different technologies we have there, both proprietary and kind of industry standard BMS level protections. We know we can depend on what lithium ion is going to deliver to the consumer in a meaningful way, with really high energy density compared to existing rechargeable batteries. And also just the higher output of lithium ion allows for things that we do with our batteries, like a constant voltage output from start to finish, where you don't have a voltage decay, to get that maximum performance out of the batteries. We spoke before about how most single-use alkaline batteries are thrown away with, upwards of 30% charge still left in the battery. Us being able to deliver constant voltage output all the way to the end of a cycle, ensures that when that battery is depleted, you're getting the most out of that.
So let me ask you it this way: in the buckets of performance, reliability, and convenience, why is lithium ion? And for us, we know it's the clear winner. But from a performance, just in short, performance, reliability, convenience, how does lithium ion's attributes kind of help us achieve our goals there?
Yeah, lithium ion charges, extremely fast compared to nickel metal hydride and nickel cadmium, which is one of the biggest differences you see when plugging our batteries into a USB port versus one of those wall chargers. Reliability wise, the cells can last for upwards of 1,000 cycles versus, couple hundred for some of the other antiquated technologies. And then performance based, the high energy density allows us to have the largest capacity in the smallest form factor in the cells, as well as delivering higher output speeds as well for max use capacities where you have higher ampage output needs and things like that.
And so when people are, let's say, shopping for batteries, and they've said, okay, this new generation of rechargeable batteries is worth exploring, and there's more options out there than ever. When they're shopping, and they, the one number that they can point at is milliamp hours or milliwatt hours or watt hours on in terms of how much energy or current is available on the product. When they're shopping, they look at that one number. How important is it for people to shop just based on that number? What are the other characteristics or features that or attributes that people should be looking for when they are shopping for their first rechargeable battery in 20 years?
It makes sense for them for a consumer or a customer to look at power. It's probably one of the biggest bullet points you have on battery specifications, but there's a lot of underlying elements as well. Reliability, mostly based on protection circuits and things like that. Safety factors within the battery, convenience. Those are all things that also should be considered that need to be balanced. If a battery has a high capacity but lacks a lot of the safety features that Paleblue batteries have, it's a potential worry for the health of that cell, especially if we have power users that are putting a lot of cycles on these batteries in extreme conditions. It shouldn't just be looking at capacity. It should be looking at safety, reliability. Paleblue batteries have a lifetime warranty, charge for life warranty. So, no matter what happens to your battery, no matter when, come back to us and we'll get it replaced or we're warranted for you.
Yeah, 100%. We spend a lot of time talking about performance, convenience, reliability, safety, the warranty, service, like all of those components of the business and the product are all tied into what we're out to do, which is to make customers not only happy with their products from Paleblue, but like so happy that they're never going back to single-use batteries. And so when I think about the whole milliamp hour, milliwatt hour shopping comparison project, let's say, number one, so many battery companies, especially on Amazon, are not being truthful about their capacity. Number two, reliability over time matters. I saw a recent article that showed the products that were tested by a media outlet, some batteries, not Paleblue batteries, but other batteries. And after 50 charge cycles, they had lost 70%, 75% of their original capacity. And so reliability over time, being able to charge them anywhere for convenience is awesome, but being able to charge them repeatedly for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of uses, knowing that they're going to be there for you when you need them, which is, like, as I said, when you need a battery, it's right now or pretty soon. Lights go out, guess what? You need a battery. Find your flashlight battery's dead and it's Paleblue. Guess what? You just pull them out and you charge them from your power bank and get your flashlight going. And that stack of feature attribute benefits from performance to reliability to safety to convenience to usability to service and warranty, all of those things are part of the package with Paleblue. And so I discourage people from just saying, well, this one's got 20% more milliamp hours than that one. Number one, buyer beware on believing any of the claims that you see online from some of these companies. Number two, it's only part of the picture. When you're making an investment in a battery, and Paleblue are not cheap. You can buy cheaper batteries, but over time they are very cheap. Like I said, the cost of ownership is so low that you want to take into account all of the other aspects of buying a battery than simply looking at milliamp hours or milliwatt hours. I think that's a foolish way to look at it. Dave, maybe it would be useful for people who haven't experienced our product to kind of understand basically like what's it like to use a Paleblue battery, like how do they need to behave or what do they need to learn, and how simple or difficult is it to make the switch from alkaline batteries to Paleblue?
I mean, that's the one thing that's nice about the ubiquitous USB-C charging cable. If you can plug in a cell phone, then, you're already practiced on how to use Paleblue batteries. We have some nuances of some innovation we have with charging cable that has multi-ended charging cable that can allow us to charge multiple batteries at once versus one at a time. But outside of that, it's just plugging in any of our batteries to a basic USB-C cable to be able to charge up the battery. We have a very prominent UI on our battery, a user interface that shows a charging ring on the different conditions that the battery's in, whether it's charging, whether it's fully charged, whether it's not charging. But that is front and center for the user to be able to quickly see from even across the room what's going on with their batteries so they can stay informed when things are charged and ready to go.
Gotcha. So it's simple as plug it in like everything else in your life, and then you're ready to go. Dave, could you just kind of describe any behaviors that are needed to properly take care of the battery, such as like charging? Do I need to fully discharge and fully charge the battery? Can I charge it for a few minutes if I need it?
Yeah, of course. That's one great thing about lithium-ion is no memory retention, whether you go through a whole cycle or a partial cycle. With lithium-ion, the charge rates are incremental. So, if you have two half charges back to back, that kind of adds up to one total charge as far as the life cycle count for the battery goes. But no, you can charge them up anytime you need, even if you're only down a couple of percent, just want to top it off before you start what your next mission is with the batteries. Plug them in, top them off. No harm to the battery at all. One thing
I'll mention to people at trade shows often is like our AA gets to like 75% charge in an hour. Our AAA is fully charged in an hour. But if you need a battery in 10 minutes, charge our battery for 10 minutes and go use it for whatever project you're working on. It's not going to hurt the battery to give it a little charge if you find yourself with a dead battery in a time of need. So I've always just felt like that convenience of being able to charge quickly anywhere, anytime for as long as you need to get through. Maybe you need to get through campfire s'mores and you need a battery for the kids for their headlamps, and you can charge up for 20 minutes before the campfire time. But on the other hand, charge it fully in a very short period of time too. And then that convenience level of being able to plug something in simply anytime, anywhere, get to a full power battery. Like you mentioned, our battery's full 1.5 volts, meaning full power all the time. So whether it's at 5% charge or 95% charge, it's still full power battery. It might be worth spending a few minutes talking about how we kind of design the overall system of our batteries. They're fairly complex little things despite the simplicity of the use case and how they plug in and charge. Maybe talk about how we achieve the BMS inside, the charging port, like how does that stack up with the cell inside? How does that all come together into a battery that, looks and feels very simple, but has a lot going on under the hood?
Part of our design ethos, in conjunction with sustainability, is also on the manufacturing side. There's a lot of things that we focused on to make the batteries as straightforward and simple as possible, which helps with a lot of aspects of the manufacturing process, whether that is a complex part that maybe has a lot of yield, meaning that a lot of parts are scrapped in production, or just a lot of assembly time to put batteries together that consumes environmental resources, power, electricity, on assembly lines, things like that. So our batteries are designed to be as minimal, straightforward, and as reliable as possible when assembling and putting together. So one great example of that is on our PCBA. We don't even have a full-size USB-C port on there. We actually utilize our PCBA board as the connector for the USB-C cable, which helps reduce mechanical space required inside the battery, and maximizes space for the cell, but also reduces more part count that are on the PCBA, as well as simplifies assembly modes.
How much space do we actually give up in a battery to put a PCBA on there with a USB port and that nice light pipe that you mentioned?
Yeah, our latest gens are around 6 to 7% physical capacity inside the cell is utilized for BMS and other required components.
Gotcha. So we're giving up a little bit of space, and so therefore maybe giving up a little bit of capacity. But since the battery is full power from start to finish, uniquely so, you can actually use the full capacity. So I would argue that you get more out of our batteries than you would out of any other battery that has a decaying voltage. I also might mention that we've made several innovations along the way to optimize the system for overall efficiency to make sure that we can maximize the amount of energy storage. But the other side of that is we've made some chemistry changes along the way. Maybe you could speak to some of those optimization efforts along the way. And we've gone through many generations of our products, and in the current generation, it's quite good and quite optimized, but there's still room. And so maybe you could talk about how we've optimized along the way to keep bringing more reliability and performance and power storage.
From the product side, we are constantly optimizing our chemistry and systems level architecture, whether that's EE components or the physical layout of the batteries. But we're always focused on optimizing safety protections, capacity of the cells, and just general efficiency of the battery and the power that it can deliver.
Yeah, it's been like a year and a half since we rolled out a kind of re-engineering of the architecture that brought so much more capacity into our batteries. I think our AA went up 15 or 20%. I remember our D cell went up 33%. We just, those continuous efforts to make our product ever better are fantastic and something that we're dedicated to. If you just kind of follow that arc into the future, I just imagine batteries that have far more capacity, that charge much faster, and that last even longer. Even though our batteries, you could charge them once a week for like 20 years. Like I imagine a battery for life kind of thing. I imagine a battery that you can charge in minutes and not an hour. For now, I feel like we've been really pushing the pedal on bringing more innovation, better performance, better reliability, more usability, more architecturally efficient innovations at the battery structural level, just to keep bringing more value to our customers. And we just have been on that from day one. And about once a year, rolling those sorts of improvements out to our market. So one of the, talking about the genesis of the company being one really around bringing better benefits to consumers, not only in terms of waste, but in terms of value to them and money that they can save just by bringing modern tech to the battery space. One of the things that we did initially in the very earliest of days was to become kind of oriented around having more impact than just selling an awesome battery to customers that saves them money and waste. I'll point to 1% for the Planet, our membership with them, and we've got dozens more nonprofit relationships and others that we support as part of Impact. But I think as this is a conversation on product, maybe spend a few minutes talking about how we take that sort of mentality around resources and sustainability into the product side of the business.
Yeah, from the product side, I mean, first and foremost, with 1,000 recharges for each of our batteries, that keeps 1,000 single-use batteries out of landfills, incinerators, or wherever they end up. But then that also expands to the way that we developed our full product experience for the consumer, whether that is the GRS certified material we use in all of our carry cases or the curb recyclable hand cards. It's very minimal packaging. You literally pull the hand card off, you can recycle that, and then anything you're left with is with you for the life of the product. Then from the battery itself, when it comes to the major chemistries, we work with flagship partners on the chemistry side that are all part of the RMI, the Responsible Minerals Initiative, that responsibly source materials that we use in all of the lithium cells, whether that is some of the rare earth materials like the lithiums and the cobalts of the world, things like that.
Yeah, I think we're active members with 1% for the Planet. We're steward members with Call to Recycle. There's all these other aspects. We've got all these nonprofits that we work with, river cleanups and ecosystem restoration, all sorts of amazing things. But at the core, you get this core essence of like when somebody makes the switch from single use to Paleblue, is that they don't have to run to the store, they don't have to buy anything or throw anything away. And every time you use the battery, you go, wow, I got what I needed for very cheap, meaning like a 20th of a penny per charge. But I also had little impact resource-wise to my wallet, but also my waste side on the trash side, but also didn't have to interrupt my life or the campfire or whatever you're into at the moment that you need batteries for. So you're saving on all fronts. But I think, the extra effort of like, hey, well, let's responsibly source down to the chemistry level, the minerals that are used in our product. Let's engineer our packaging to be post-consumer recycled material and curb recyclable and minimal. In this case itself is not a throwaway. It's a storage travel case, which has, been very well received. And yeah, really, really, I think we've just taken the approach at all levels to minimize our own impacts directly, but also just kind of help our customers save on the waste side, on the money side, and anything else, maybe time and trips to the store and gas and all of the wear and tear that might take, or it may just be saving precious time around the campfire with the kids and letting them run their headlamps even while they're cooking s'mores at the campfires. The way I've come to think about it is like, don't interrupt life and fun because you don't want to stop any of that just because of batteries.
And I mean, even further on the impact on the logistical side, Tom, I mean, if, our 4-packs are good for 1,000 recharges, in essence, it's a 4,000 pack of batteries, just kind of stop for a minute and think about how, if you bought 4,000 batteries at the store over the course of a handful of years, think about all the packaging that's wasted there. Think about all the transport that's needed to get those batteries to the store. Like, think about all of the extra aspects that, are not repeated when you buy a 4-pack of Paleblue batteries. Yeah,
we're coming up on 3 million batteries sold, which could replace 3 billion alkaline batteries. We do the math on how much waste is that? Well, it's about 100 million pounds of alkaline batteries that our batteries could prevent over their lifetimes. But then you roll in the packaging, the warehousing, the shipping back and forth in trucks, and getting moved from this warehouse to that warehouse, and the touches of getting them out into retail or whatever. All those alkaline batteries consume so much more resources than just the batteries themselves, that certainly adds up to far more than just the impact of the batteries. But I've come to telling people at trade shows like, hey, if I were to tell you I would sell you 4,000 alkaline batteries for $30, let's say, that's a heck of a deal. Well, it's essentially what our 4-pack of alkalines is. I'm selling you the ability to, use these things 1,000 times each, 4,000 batteries replaced. It's a pretty sweet deal. And the ROI is very near term. You get your money back pretty quick and then just keep saving money. But on the flip side of that is just saving so much trash and waste, and, all of that stuff adds up dismally quickly, let's say. So Dave, on the product side, just from the product perspective on our business and where our products touch the market and our customers, like, just help me kind of summarize. There's a lot of nuance and detail that we've talked about, but help me summarize for people, like, where do you think rubber meets the road with Paleblue?
Yeah, it's about the ease of use and, seamlessly integrating into people's current lifestyles and what it is that they already are doing to be able to not be too cumbersome or to make it too much of a deviation. It has to just work with the devices, and it has to work with their current lifestyles and their preferences and how they manage things. So, bringing that reliability in a seamless way, that's kind of where the focus needs to be. So Tom, I'll put that back at you. From the business side, where do you think you see Paleblue in the progression?
Yeah, so from the business perspective, I think businesses exist to fill the needs of humans, and through the market and all of that, it's kind of comes to life. But as I think about our business, it's hard for me to extricate my thinking from thinking about the customer and the user of our products. And so I think we're just hyper focused on making better products that are easier to use, they're easier to adopt in your life, they're easier to, in our case, invest in to save you money over time. I just think that being laser focused on innovation for the human at the end of the delivery of our products is the most important thing. And so fortunately for us, there's just so much more innovation possible in our space that, batteries are only going to get better, chemistries are going to get better, their BMS is going to get better, performance, reliability, convenience only is going to get better. I think gets better faster with a company like Paleblue setting the bar very high. We're the first movers in the space and kind of have established a very high benchmark when it comes to performance, reliability, and safety in particular, and continuing to push the limits of what that means and never losing focus on what that means for our customers, and extend that out to our service side and to our warranty side is like always thinking about the business holistically when it comes to the experience of a customer, whether it's a customer that's a first-time customer or they've bought 10 times before, or hey, my battery's having some issues and they reach out to customer support and next thing you know, we send them 2 batteries to replace the one that was having issues. Any of those sorts of touch points with a customer, whether it's the product, service, warranty, the brand itself, it's just super important for us to take care of. And I think it's a benefit of being the innovators in the space. We have the ability to go do that. It's also a responsibility that we have as having created the category, set the bar really high. We have a responsibility to maintain that and keep grinding away at it. So as we go into Earth Day, I wanted to mention one thing. We've got this cool new impact meter and also an impact calculator on the website. The impact meter is kind of at the product level, and it shows customers how much money and waste they can save with our products. And I think that's just super important for us to be able to communicate specifically what that impact is. Obviously, there's an impact on people's lives in terms of convenience and savings. But what is it actually in real hard numbers? And it's super exciting to have that out on our website for the first time. So shout out to Ben for creating those tools. And I would encourage everyone that's considering looking at a better battery solution for their life to go check out the website. Dave, as you look down the road 5-10 years at this category, we've been at it for over 5 years now, but fast forward 5 or 10 years, how do you think about the category? Where do you think innovation is going to take us?
Yeah, I mean, Tom, as you said before, we've at Paleblue, we've always kind of focused on chemistry agnostic solutions. So, as lithium-ion improves or new technologies with solid state or sodium ion come down the road, we're going to be at the bleeding edge of being able to take advantages of those technologies in our products and turn them around quickly to the consumer to make sure that they're always matching the expectations and what's needed out there in the industry.
Good to see you, man. We're unfortunately traveling in different parts of the country and zigzagging a little bit lately, but good to catch up, and appreciate you sharing your insight with everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Always good to chat products.